think you might have taken the hedge trimming a little too far there, old chum.
So I have.
Welcome back, everybody. Today, we're discussing WandaVision Episode 3. This episode revealed a ton of information about the physical world and the reality that everybody is trapped in. It shows again who is in control and who may be pulling some of the strings from the inside. So, let's jump into it. Starting off, we continue in color like the ending of episode 2, and the intro clearly inspired by the Brady Bunch. The hexagons are in full swing, which, if you recall, was something that I mentioned in the last video. I'm not sure of its meaning explicitly, but it could be pointing to the Infinity Stones, or it could be pointing to a company called AIM. AIM stands for Advanced Idea Mechanics, and we saw this in their company in Iron Man 3. They were seemingly defeated, but it's entirely possible that they are still around in some interesting way, and this may be the start of their involvement once again. Otherwise, the hexagon usage is still up in the air, but it's definitely here for a reason. The show begins by reminding us of the pregnancy in the opening credits and an at-home visit from a doctor. We get a nice background shot here, and the house appears to be similar to the one in episode 2, with a few noticeable changes as they prepare for the wee humans. But we know it's the same physical location because of the address that never changes even from episode 1. It's always 2800, and they've shown this repeatedly, so I think it's important for us to remember this. Vision appears to be worried about the fact that she's pregnant, which really feels off to me. If he had a genuine concern about this, I think naturally it would have manifested last episode when she stood up and suddenly had humans inside of her. I think this might be to show us that Wanda herself is having mixed emotions, and it's manifesting as her partner asking the questions that she is too afraid to ask directly. Questions and anomalies that challenge her perfect world are being masked as comedic relief concern by the husband. Then we get Herb having a full Westworld moment as his programming does not quite add up with his task. Since the next thing that we see is Wanda with a bigger belly, I wonder if this isn't like a logical trade of resources, as in she had to focus on making her belly bigger and manifesting the children, and other parts of the world had less power to render. As he comes back inside, Vision catches a papaya that her bigger belly bumps against, which is a great mechanic of the showrunners to tell us exactly how far along we are now. The doctor, of course, said at 5 months the baby would be about the size of a papaya. Later, we also see the pineapple being cut up for the 7-month marker, and it's interesting to consider that Agnes was the one that gave them a pineapple in episode 1, once again linking her to these children, even if symbolically. I'm still on the theory that Wanda is in control here, but that a third-party actor is influencing things outside of her knowledge. I believe that that is going to be revealed as Agnes, possibly as a character called Agatha Harkness, and possibly doing so for the summoning or creation of Mephisto. Then we get the first kick at 6 months as she puts the nursery together with all the positives of pregnancy and none of the bad things, of course. The butterflies are also something to keep note of here because they keep repeating, and I'm not exactly sure of the significance, but symbolically they can mean a few things, including resurrection, change, and renewal. I think likely pointing to the world that she's created, but in this case, it's also showing us that things happen because of her powers, even though she doesn't control them or wish them to happen. She feels the baby kick, thinks of butterflies in her tummy, and she says this.
Oh, did I do that? I didn't mean to.
Oh.
I believe this tiny little note is vastly important because it's showing us how easily it is for her to lose control of these godlike powers. It amplifies as the episode continues with the flooding and the craziness during labor. But what if it's trying to tell us that this is probably how the world came to be in the first place? Her emotions get away from her, and like I talked about in the episode 1 breakdown, she could have created this world because of the grief that she felt over losing Vision, now explicitly telling us and showing us that this is a possibility. She can lose control of these powers, and it can have unexpected effects. The kitchen scene then shows her having contractions and affecting the world around her as she loses concentration on the unexpected going on with her body. The lights start going crazy and they jump into action just like they would have in the real world, back to back, ready to fight the forces of evil to protect each other. Feels good seeing this again, even if it is only in her imagination. Then we have the biggest shocking moment of the series so far as Vision starts putting things together, which again may speak to her battling feelings about the situation, or it may be pointing to Vision having some degree of free will and agency over himself to think and act, right? It could also translate to Vision being alive, though I'm still not ready to believe that the Mind Stone is somehow in the universe again. I think more likely she is controlling Vision as she's controlling the others, but giving him much more ability than they do because, it makes him seem like much more of himself. So again, it doesn't ruin her immersion. The only time this backfires is now, when he gets too close to the truth and she has to blink him back a few moments for her convenience. She rewinds time again and he comes back whispering perfect words into her ears until she again has a contraction that cannot be ignored. Then we have the commercial for the Hydra soap, which of course is about escapism. Literally even telling us this is about escaping into a world all of your own. They say it's not about getting away, it's about getting away without going anywhere. I think it points again to Wanda having some sort of mental break and creating this reality in the physical world, which, later on how the episode ends is something that we can confirm. This pocket reality is occupying a physical space. Vision goes off to find a doctor and we hear a noise in the spare bedroom, which of course turns out to be a stork showing us, hey, it's time for them babies. Geraldine comes into the picture and says something that felt so natural the first time I heard this, that it wasn't until the third rewatch that this became a red flag.
But first, I gotta borrow a bucket. Somehow, all the pipes in my ceiling burst at once, and I gotta bail myself out.
Now, Geraldine tells Wanda that her home flooded and that she needed a bucket, which felt perfectly natural because of what just happened in her own living room. But because of what happens in this episode, and because of the theory crafting in episode 2, and because of what Agnes says, I believe she does not have a home in Westview at all, just like Agnes said, and she is really there to help Wanda as a member of S.W.O.R.D., which all makes sense, right? That is the good guys coming in to help. So the question is, why does Geraldine show up at all? Why is she there lying about the reason that she's there? And why is Agnes, the one that we believe to be the villain of this story, the person telling the truth about the person lying? But back to the comedy of the alive stork that refuses to leave Wanda alone. We see it appear as Geraldine tells Wanda about her job, and because she wears attractive fish clothing, this leads to the pregnancy being revealed. Vision takes a more direct route at getting the doctor there and shows off his super speed. While that's happening, Geraldine is also seeing the craziness of the house as Wanda begins the birthing process. Then comes out a wee baby boy with bright blue eyes and a touching father and son moment that Wanda has surely always dreamed of. Then boy number 2 is born. I was personally hoping for twins, one boy and one girl, but the House of M comic series has 2 boys, so I guess this is actually a really good indicator that they are mirroring much of the comic series, and we can look to that for a lot of inspiration about how they are going to build this show. I also think it's important to note how the doctor makes a joke about superhuman speed instead of being freaked out, right? Everybody would have freaked out, but Geraldine likely witnessed this too, and it would be enough to send someone running out of the house, but they were just characters in Wanda's perfect story, totally complacent and accepting of the reality as crazy as it was around them. They were helpful and perfect and comforting, and all added to the image of a good childbirth that resulted in 2 healthy children that every mother surely dreams of in that situation. Then we have the ultimate dab of tension and the reveal of a minor bit of awakening in the Doctor. He talks about how hard small towns are to escape and how he understood that he was trapped here by Wanda. Maybe not explicitly understands this, but it's masked as a joke about growing up in small towns, but it feels like the showrunners are telling us that these are real people that want to escape this place and can't. It also reminded me of the pool radio scene where Dottie may have snapped out of it for a second to question who Wanda really was and what she was specifically doing there. Then we see Herb and Agnes gossiping about Geraldine being inside alone with Wanda. If you turn on the captions, you can see what they're saying, but it really doesn't add much. Agnes is just planting the seed of doubt about Geraldine in Vision's head, which again, I think these are opposing forces. And then we go back inside to see that Wanda is remembering her twin brother and a bit of awakening in Geraldine, reminding her of the hard truth that Pietro was killed by Ultron. But of course, in Wanda's perfect world, that isn't something that can happen. On the outside, we see Herb and Agnes further water that seed of doubt about Geraldine. Now, it's important because I believe that Geraldine works for SWORD. Again, I think I've said this 30 times now, who I believe are the good guys. I believe that Agnes is manipulating this world for her gain, something to do with the children and their possible powers, and she's having this conversation by casting a spell over Herb so that it kind of masks it as genuine concern for their neighbor. And she also almost loses control of him later on. Herb says,
"Came here because we're all..."
Stop it!
And it's really interesting to consider what he was about to say, because it feels like he was going to say, we're all under her spell, we're all trapped here, which would really mean that all of these people know what is happening to them mentally and are unable to do anything about it physically. That would be pretty haunting if that was the case, and if Wanda's doing that, pretty bad. Being controlled like a puppet of someone's sitcom, and that may be exactly what Wanda is doing to them. I don't know what's worse, truthfully. I don't know if I would want to be conscious while that's happening, or just simply be brainwashed to believe that that is reality. The reminder of Pietro enrages Wanda, and she demands to know more about the necklace. By the time Vision gets back inside, Geraldine is gone. This, of course, is a massive blow to Wanda's control over this place, because more and more things keep happening, and she may lose control entirely. This could be shown to us, and this could manifest as the collapse of the spell that controls this place in the physical Westview town, or it could mean that she loses control of the pocket reality, and it grows and consumes the entire world, becoming much more like the House of M comic series. We then see the aspect ratio change, showing again the changing of times, and just like Westworld did, pointing to the real world. Something also worth noting is because we now see what happens when Wanda snaps her fingers and makes people disappear, I have to imagine that something similar happened to the Beekeeper in episode 2. Not only does she rewind time then, but she also makes the person not come through the drain at all. So we, of course, then see Geraldine being tossed from the physical pocket reality, and we see a giant team of agents swarm her with guns drawn. It shows the state of the world, and that tiny little detail is incredible because they worry that this clearly non-threatening person is still a threat. She is met with guns instead of medical professionals, and I think that spells out the tension outside of this pocket reality perfectly. They are terrified and ready for whatever they think can be handled with guns. The only thing we don't know is if it's being covered up or not, because this could point to the entire world knowing, because it is such a big operation taking up so much physical space, or it could point to SWORD doing a great job of keeping the lid on this thing, and only those inside of Westview are the ones impacted. They come with guns drawn because they are ready to eliminate any threat and make sure that this information doesn't seep out into the world. Now, the last thing I want to consider before I close out the video is the effect that is used when she is thrown out. We clearly see this pixelization that is mirrored in the closing scenes, and we see a particle effect of her landing. Now, the particle effect of her landing is clearly Wanda's magic. That has existed ever since the introduction of her character. However, I think we are being shown a bit of a contrast here that could reveal who is actually in control or who actually created this pocket reality, because we've never seen this pixelization effect used for her spells. It's never ever been shown, at least, I may be wrong here, and feel free to comment below if I am, but this really feels technology based. The end of episode 1 included tools for production, a mixer for audio production, and other things that go into show production. I wonder if this isn't telling us that SWORD or some other organization created this, thus explaining why we see this pixelization effect when someone exits this barrier that, of course, has never been linked to Wanda. Wanda could just be a piece of the puzzle inside of it. Now, since this pixelization effect appears to be technology based, I have to wonder if it also links to AIM, that technology company that I spoke about briefly at the start of the video, if they aren't involved in some kind of way as well. But it's all just speculation at this point, and we come to the end of the episode. Please be sure to comment, like, share, and of course, please subscribe if you want to see more content just like this. I appreciate you all so very much for being here, and a special shout out to my wonderful Patreon supporters, Michael Linck, as always, my highest tier supporter, making videos like this very possible. Much love, everybody, and I cannot wait to talk to you all again soon.